Hello everyone, this is Dan again with another video. I wanted to go ahead and mention that I pulled down the last video that I made that was on, or that was supposed to be about slippery slope arguments and what does and what doesn't constitute that kind of argument, and how you need to make up your mind for yourself uh, where you stand on particular issues rather than letting other people control the narrative. And I guess some SJWs on 4chan got a hold of it and decided that they were going to spam it with a bunch of negative, rude comments, and they were going to just give it a bunch of thumbs down. So I'm going to revise that video and send it out again. But as for tonight's video topic, I wanted to discuss the wall, and something that I think is not mentioned as often as it should be when we're talking about the wall and basically sexual marketplace value, and how women have these unrealistic expectations that as they get into their 40s and 50s that they're still going to be able to attract the same quality of men that they had, when they were in their 20s and early 30s. In particular, I wanted to, start off by describing the wall and then go from there to describing some of the arguments that are made for and against its existence and how it should be defined. So basically, the wall within the manosphere is, the definition of it is that as a woman reaches a certain age, her sexual marketplace value plummets to a point where she can no longer attract the class of men that she would like to be with, or that she could attract previously. Because physical intimacy is one of the key things that women naturally bring to the table in relationships, and let's face it, we understand within the red pill community or within the manosphere, we understand that relationships are basically a sex for resources transaction. That may not be the only thing that's necessary for a relationship to work, but that is the core of a relationship. It is necessary, as far as being the central theme of how men and women have an incentive to get together. The woman offers physical intimacy and the man offers her some form of resources. So because physical intimacy and how a woman appears and just whether she's attractive or not is so important, when women begin to lose their ability to be physically attractive when they get old, and they're no longer as good looking as they used to be, it creates a situation where women have significantly less to offer men, because that's a big part of what they're banking on in relationships in the first place. They want to be able to use their good looks to attract the kind of man that they're looking for. And when a woman reaches a certain age, that begins to diminish. Her ability to do that begins to diminish. So people without knowledge or understanding of sexual marketplace value, and without a knowledge or without understanding that relationships at their core between men and women are a sex for resources transaction. The relationships just won't happen in general between men and women if there isn't that transaction taking place. So people who don't understand part of this, either the sexual marketplace value, or they don't understand what relationships essentially are, they will try to make the claim that the wall either doesn't exist, or it doesn't exist as described by MGTOW men, that it's not a matter of women losing their sexual marketplace value as they get older, because some women who are in their 40s and 50s remain attractive, and they're able to sleep with high status men, and they're able to have active sex lives with whatever men that they want, or within reason they're able to get a variety of different men to have sexual relationships with them. So although most men, especially men who are well established and have been successful and maybe a little bit older, although most men are going to look for younger women, it is true that these cougars can sometimes, be very sexual and have sex with a lot of men, even men who may be relatively high status, and may have, um, a lot of things going for him in terms of what women look for. She may be able to have sex with a man who's like that if she is still physically attractive enough. However, the point that is most often lost in all of this is that after a certain age, women also lose their fertility. They lose their ability to have children, and eventually they approach menopause. In cases where an older woman who's in her 40s or maybe her early 50s does become pregnant, the process of pregnancy, it leads to a high probability of having an unhealthy child due to genetic defects and due to her waiting so long to have children or having children again at that age. So most people want to eventually find one partner to settle down with, especially women. Women in most cases want one man to act as their husband or the potential father of their children once they're done having fun and riding the cock carousel. And women think that they can do this indefinitely, even into their 40s and 50s, because, hey, some women in their 40s and 50s are still attractive, right? But regardless of whether a particular woman manages to stay attractive, which in many cases they don't, the women who are still attractive into their 40s and 50s are pretty rare overall. But, they do exist. But, even with women who manage to maintain this, level of attractiveness, men who are looking to settle down with one woman aren't going to have any interest in these cougars because they can't build a family with them. And if they're not going to build a family, then why should they want to settle down in the first place? That's the key. I'm not saying that there aren't people who want to get married and then not have kids, or that there aren't men who just want to find one woman, whether they think that woman is special, and without even using the Nawalt language, because I'm really talking about this from your typical blue pill man's perspective. But if you're going to get married and you're going to settle down with just one woman, you're not just looking to have sex with the woman, and have that be the only basis for your relationship or the only basis for your association with that woman. Why would you choose a woman in her 40s or 50s, especially if you're a successful guy and you can get women who, are fertile and as a result have a higher sexual marketplace value than these older women? So, like I'm saying, even when a woman who is in her 40s and 50s and wants to continue to ride the cock carousel, or she thinks that she's still attractive so she can still get a high value man that she thinks she deserves, and she's managed to, like I say, maintain a large percentage of her youthful attractiveness, she's still only valued as pump and dump material. Most successful men with a relatively high sexual marketplace value are going to pursue younger women. And those men who are still interested in these cougars, they have no reason to see them as potential long-term partners. So the conclusion that I've reached, and the point that I'm trying to make with this video, is that fertility is probably the more important aspect of the wall, because once this inevitably diminishes, really to a point of non-existence, unlike physical attractiveness, it's like, there is a definite time limit for, when a woman can have kids. And women are trying to get around this by freezing their eggs. They're trying to get around this by planning ahead, not in a logical way, but, in the sense of spending a whole lot of money thinking that's going to allow them to attract a male partner later, or that they'll be able to find a man later, even if they're no longer fertile and most likely not physically attractive anymore either. But, I think fertility is really a big key to understanding the wall, because even women who somewhat survive for a period of time the ravages of what time and life can do to you as far as what you look like, as far as your appearance is concerned, these women still can't have kids once they get to a certain point, or the kids that they will have are going to be genetically messed up in many cases because, their eggs have had these genetic mutations and whatnot over time. I think we pretty much at this point know that it's much more dangerous to have a kid, for a woman to have a kid, um, as she gets older, even into her early 40s. So because a woman's fertility diminishes and then just disappears entirely, if a man is going to settle down, if he's going to pursue a woman in a serious way, with the idea of having a family, why would he go out with a cougar? Why would any man in this situation be willing to consider a serious relationship with one of these older women who have been waiting for the right guy all the way up to the point where, they no longer can have his children, which, we know from a MGTOW perspective that a man can't really have access to his own children anyway. But again, this is from the everyday kind of blue pill man's approach, from the everyday man's perspective. If you're going to build a family in your mind as a man, you're not going to go after some woman who may still be attractive to a large degree, but is too old to start building a family with. And I think it's important to realize that regardless, like I say, of what a woman looks like, that part of the wall is something that she will inevitably have to deal with. And so these arguments that the wall doesn't exist, or that, there's a hot woman who's 50 years old, so, that debunks the wall somehow, it doesn't, because these women are still pretty much just pump and dump material. They're still just sex objects, basically, because they've lost their fertility and they don't have anything else to offer. And so they have effectively hit the wall, and their sexual marketplace value has plummeted drastically, because no matter what she looks like, men are still not going to consider having serious relationships with these women.